The Columbia River Bar is where the Columbia River meets the Pacific Ocean. It's one of the most dangerous passages in the world for a small boat. I am in a small boat. I'm going to catch tuna. I am not a fisherwoman. Trust me, I can explain.
You guys good?
For a decade now, my husband Taylor and I have made our living as vegetable farmers, and I've written about our lives and my farm-to-table creations on my blog, Dishing Up the Dirt. During my years as a farmer and a cook, I've begun to realize that I'm actually searching for something deeper through food. I think it's what led me to farming in the first place, and has driven me to make the various choices I've made about food ever since. It's why I steered away from dairy and meat for a long time because of questions about health effects as well as how hard their production is on our planet. It's why I began playing around in the kitchen with making alternatives to dairy products using cashews and miso instead. And it's why I've now come full circle and started raising pigs and chickens on our farm. But through all these changes, I haven't been able to put my finger on what exactly I'm looking for. I've long considered myself a locavore, but one look into my cupboard and I quickly realized the origins of some of my staple ingredients were a little suspect. Then an idea hatched. Could I eat from within 200 miles for 30 days? I decided to try it for the month of September, and I dragged my husband into it too. We'd call it Local 30. In order to set ourselves up for success, we need to have 10 staple cheats that would make the 30 days more doable. Things like beer and coffee are essentials. We made food and poured drinks around a fire to plan it out.
I'm not gonna lie, I was coming into this session not realizing that we were talking about ingredients only. I thought we were talking about products. But I have only 4 products.
Okay, so we'll do the math on the
So
ingredients.
maybe, I mean, we'll see how it works out. But my 4 cheats are gonna be nacho cheese flavored Doritos. Duh. Hidden Valley Ranch. Duh. Watermelon Smash flavored Natty Rush. Duh. And Wintergreen Copenhagen. I mean, I'm a country boy.
That's my husband Taylor. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little worried about him with the Local 30 project. But he's in. And this is my brother Adam. He's working the farm with us this summer. And here's his wife Rebecca. I figured safety in numbers. They're all down for the Local 30 too.
Let's talk about why are we gonna do this? Why are we doing this?
We're doing this because it just seems like right now that there are so many kind of crazy diets out there, or folks are just so disconnected to what is actually like grown in their own backyards. And I mean, I'm guilty of that. I was in a Whole Foods in Austin, Texas. I was walking down the aisles and I was like, I could be in freaking New York City, I could be in Portland, Oregon. Every single aisle was the exact same. And that just didn't feel right. I don't necessarily know that that's wrong, but it didn't sit right with me. I love tasting the flavors of the world. Getting all these great exotic foods is awesome. But I think our food system might actually be failing us when we can eat avocados, mangoes, and bananas any time of the year. The industrial food system and corporate grocery store culture has erased the world seasons. Most people can't trace their food back to the places or the humans that grew it. We need to get back to basics.
But the elephant in the room is that we're just sitting around talking about this holier than thou, how to make the world
Trying
a
to
better
make a
place,
difference.
when really we're just looking like a bunch of assholes.
That's the goal. How do we not look like assholes? Because they still want to do this.
Is like trying to eat locally for a month, or even just eating locally in general, is that just like a privileged thing that just organic farmers come up with? I'm like sitting there like weeding this morning, listening to a podcast, like kids being separated
Yeah.
at the border or whatever.
Shit going on now, and there's always gonna be a lot of shit going on. But the food thing is always prevalent, and it's always coming up again and again. I don't know. We're gonna try it. You know, hopefully it makes a difference with us. Maybe other people care too, and maybe it's something. We're forcing ourselves to do this, and we're gonna find these places, and that's what's gonna carry over to the rest of our life. That's why just doing this for a month is gonna, is so important.
What it boils down to is this. I'm seeking some bigger sense of place. We've been on this farm for 6 years, and we're not going anywhere. But I'm restless. There's more out there than these 4 walls and 6 acres. This Local 30 project is a chance to show that eating locally is not only possible, but actually easier than you think. It's also a way to grow our sense of home, and for me, that starts with leaving the farm to meet other food producers. First stop, Sherman County, home of our farmers market neighbors, cattle ranchers, Tim and Keely Jeffries. We lucked out, timing our Friday visit with the start of the annual Sherman County Fair. On our drive, I found myself thinking about how we've never had a reason to venture out to Sherman County before. It's a totally different world. In the early fall, it's dry and harsh. Pretty bleak from our perspective as outsiders from lusher landscapes. I grew up in suburban Portland, and Taylor's from Massachusetts.
What's the name of this one?
Chocolate Brownie Thunder. Like an ice cream flavor. Can we get goat? Our farm in the Hood River Valley is nestled between irrigated pastures and orchards. Everything is pretty green year-round. Sherman County is all dryland wheat farming, cattle range, and wind energy. It's a place I've always thought of as kind of desolate, but I caught myself appreciating how beautiful it is in its own way.
Slow down. There you go, look at that, man. You're roping less down.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
In the last few years, I've gone back to eating beef, mainly because I buy it from my friends Tim and Keely. I can't wait to learn more about their ranch. Tim and Keely Jeffries raised 2 kids and hundreds of heads of cattle at their off-grid ranch. We arrived at the ranch with a little bit of tumbleweed, greens for a simple salad, and some sweet peppers to toss on the grill.
What's up, guys?
Hey guys! Tim grew up in Sherman County and spent a good chunk of his younger years roping on the rodeo circuit. As a child of the 60s, there's also a hint of Jerry Garcia mixed into his cowboy personality. Before dinner, we went out for a drive around the ranch.
Yeah, so Wheaton Road, there was nothing here. I mean, I put up all the fence. I built 7 miles of fence.
Beef is complicated. The industry on the whole is super flawed. But then you get to know actual ranchers like Keely and Tim, and whether you eat beef or not, you see how they're stewards of this beautiful country. Ranchers rely on healthy, productive land in order to stay in business with healthy cattle. More than 40% of the land in the U.S. is pasture and rangeland, too rocky, steep, or arid to support cultivated agriculture.
About 1,500 acres in this pasture here. And we only got 70 head in here. And we'll have them in here for 2 months. We put them in here the middle of July. They'll be in here till the middle of September, and then we'll take them back home.
Where those trees are?
Where those trees are. So that's 1, 2, 3.
Well-managed cattle grazing does 2 things. It mimics native large mammal grazing and improves the water-holding capacity of the land and increases biodiversity. And rangelands preserve vast ranges of habitat across the West. A food system without animals is simply unhealthy and unsustainable. We need more regenerative farming, and this includes grazing animals.
So you might want to wait till I get it hooked up.
Sure, there are bad actors in the cattle business, like any other business, but the Jeffreys and their neighbors know their land and how to manage it as well as anyone. Without them out here, invasive weeds would likely take over. Or worse yet, a gigantic Amazon distribution center.
Grill some burgers and probably some onions and maybe some zucchini or whatever else I find in there.
Yep.
To throw in the grill pan and put a little char on the buns and go from there. We had one that for some reason we didn't take it to the livestock auction, which is where they always all go. And so I said, well, let's just do one for ourselves, this year. And so we did, and end of story, man. It's the only beef we ever ate before that was like we'd stop at McDonald's and have a Big Mac or something, because we always ate, we just ate game. And so once we started eating our own beef, it was like, okay. We quit hunting. We quit McDonald's. I mean, it was like, okay, we're just gonna have our own beef now,
I think I was wrong. I don't believe that good, clean food was just a trend. That has really changed from the time that we went to the Saturday market until now. I think people really do want to eat, the kind of food that you have in your books, and you're showing people how to. What do you do with kale? Mm-hmm. Wrap some beef around it.
Exactly. Wrap it around some beef.
Yeah, the plan is, most likely, Jackson will probably do what I do. He's gonna take over one of these days when I get tired. All right, there it is.
What would you do if you didn't stay on the ranch?
I was thinking professional athlete, probably. Quarterback, probably somewhere. I don't know.
Yes.
No, I've always wanted. This is always what I've wanted to do. So it's definitely the dream.
Eating the Jeffreys beef feels different. It's the result of hardworking hands and determined hearts. And damn, you should see the sunset and the stars out here.
Got to go out the mouth of the Columbia River, which is the Columbia River Bar. Tides are kind of bad time this morning. Low tide's about 9. There's really about 3.5 hours. You got to really watch out when that tide's pushing the fastest.
Sorry, you sure paint this right underneath here. Case, that's no water at any time. We got them all right here. We have to go in the water. Everybody will come down and come be soon.
So we're going to take our time. We got a little bit of fog too, so we're not going to set any speed records crossing the bar.
6-man, 8-man life raft right here with all the survival gear as well.
It's just the whole force of the Columbia River at outgoing tide hitting the Pacific, so that's what can make it dangerous.
This is Barrett. He and his partners are commercial tuna fishermen and own Treyfin Tuna. Barrett says he doesn't sleep much the night before he captains the boat across the Columbia River Bar. Now I can see why.
Blackbirds, whitebirds, and a bunch of splashing. Let's try just sliding. If that doesn't work, we'll leave that. Oh, there's fish. You good?
I'd never done anything quite like this before. All alone with strangers on a tiny boat in the middle of the ocean, one of the first questions I was asked as I climbed on board was if I tend to get seasick. Seasick? I couldn't recall a time in my life when I was ever in a situation where seasickness was an option. I quickly learned that they don't turn the boat around for anything. Not until they catch their fish, run out of bait, or it gets dark on them. My stomach knotted up a bit, and then I really did start to panic. I was second-guessing this whole local experiment. Maybe I could have just interviewed these guys on land instead of actually going to work with them. Tuna are a tricky fish. They live deep and rise to the surface in schools to feed in quick bursts. Finding them somewhere out in the big blue is a mix of art, science, and voodoo. Catching them is sporty. 1 second we were slowly motoring, and the next there were 4 tuna on the lines, and chaos had erupted on the stern. It didn't take long before Barrett handed me a reel. I was nervous that I'd lose the fish, or worse yet, let go of the rod. But not helping felt as unnatural as sitting on the couch while Taylor pulled potatoes. After a few rounds reeling in fish, I felt a sort of rhythm cutting through all the chaos. It made me feel at home, because it happens on the farm too. This dreamy awareness of what Taylor's always doing. That's how these guys were as they started catching fish. And I had to do it too. You have to function as a single whole, or it all falls apart.
You can see they're really built for speed. You see that ridge? You fold this fin down, it fits right in there. So when he wants to go fast, the whole thing they just turn into a bullet. They tuck everything away. Big old eyeball. Beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
So that's your albacore tuna.
I felt this unexpected common thread out there in the Pacific Ocean between fishing and farming. Maybe I'm more of a fisherwoman than I thought.
Well, I guess after being on this boat all day, getting kind of workout and seeing what you guys do, kind of go back into kind of explaining sort of why you guys are doing it this way versus it seems like there's probably some easier ways.
Well, we all got into it as sport fishing guys. And so, we learned it this way. And we just realized that what we were bringing back was a better product. It's the food that we would take home to eat, and that's what we like to kind of bring people, But it certainly is the hard way. The easier way is to chug out in the boat for 6-7 days and consolidate all your expenses. Sure, most people in the Northwest, they see a can of tuna on the wall or on the shelf in the grocery store, have no idea that it probably came from right here. The top albacore producing ports in North America are usually either Westport or Owako typically. A lot of that fish is shipped overseas and processed for cheaper and then shipped back and slap a nice eco label on it and looks really nice, but you got to read the fine print. If it says Vietnam or China or something, it's been on a long journey with a huge carbon footprint, and it's just a different product, right? I don't want to put down the industry. As a whole, the albacore industry is very well managed. The whole fishery is very healthy, even large scale is hook and line, so no matter how you do it, the albacore is a good kind of food source to support. You just kind of like to see that fish stay local, American hands, American jobs making it, so.
We're fishing nuts, the bottom line. People look at us and think, these guys are crazy son of a bitches. They're out here every day in and day out, catching fish. It does take a special personality and a person.
We like winning. We like winning.
We like to win. We like to catch fish.
It's a contest every day. Who's going to catch the most fish?
Yeah.
It's always us, we hope.
They got me back to land safely, and we got to kick back with a few cold beers and the best sashimi I've ever tasted. Sitting there in the bunkhouse bar, surrounded by badass fishermen eating raw albacore, I was beyond grateful that my new friends at Treyfin Tuna had gotten this farm girl out of the dirt and into crazy waters. Not only that, but we're now proud members of the Trefin CSF. Fresh tuna 4 times a year doesn't get much better than that. I was starting to weave my own mini food system web, and it felt good.
Sorry for the panic attack. I was real worried about you guys on the C6, so nice job.
Great job. So what I'd like to do, just to show you guys, I'll take
I'm the 4th generation here. So it was my great-grandfather who came here from Sweden. And then he passed the farm along to my grandpa. And he passed it on to my dad. Now my dad and I are working here together.
Jesse Pearson is a sort of milk bootlegger. His family's 4th generation dairy farm is not just any dairy farm. The Pearsons produce raw milk, which is legal in Washington state, but illegal in Oregon. I wanted to know more about this outlaw milk.
Right when my great-grandfather moved here, he homesteaded this piece of land. Got 2 cows, started milking them. So when we would come home to visit, I would help him out on the farm and kind of fell in love with the idea of getting nutritious, fresh milk to people.
Do you foresee any changes in the future with being able to sell your milk beyond just the state of Washington?
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping so. Right now it's a federal law that keeps us from taking raw milk across state lines.
Okay.
So that would need to be changed federally. The statistics show that fluid milk consumption in the United States is really declining. And I think that could say something about the taste of the milk.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
It has that clean, I mean, we've said that even like drinking like the goat's milk, but it just, there's like a clean, sweet flavor that we grew up drinking, skim milk.
White water.
Yeah, white water. I mean, it just was terrible. And so we never really liked milk as kiddos because it didn't taste good.
I'd never milked a cow before and wasn't quite sure what to expect. I'd seen documentaries about the horrors of dairy farms, and though I knew Mountain Laurel was the small, organic production, I was still half expecting chaos. However, what struck me most about Jesse and the cows was how quiet and calm everyone was. This is raw milk, no pasteurization. It's how much of the world drinks their milk. But in many places in America, including just across the river in Oregon, it's illegal for fear of the exceptionally rare contamination. Like eating sushi, there's always a risk, and it's not for everybody. When I see the cows and the dairyman and the whole operation, it just feels right. There was life before fresh milk, and there's now life after fresh milk. It's rich and sweet and tastes almost like a steamed milk. Slightly frothy and comfortingly warm. This is old school dairy, the way it should be done.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it only takes an hour.
That's the best milk I've ever tasted in my life.
When you look at a cow, it has 4 stomachs. It's just designed to eat grass. It's not designed to eat grain. And the cows are healthier when they're just eating grass. So if the cows are healthier, it's just reasonable. They'll produce healthier milk, which makes happier people.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you don't have to be doctoring them up and things like that.
Yeah, so I don't have to spend money on medicines.
Mm-hmm.
The cows just go out in the field and eat grass. So in that way, it's economical for me. And I don't have to buy grain. They produce a lot less milk when they're just eating grass compared to if you fed them grain.
Okay.
But I think that the milk that they produce just eating grass is more nutritious. So that's the advantage there. And it makes it very satisfying as a farmer to know that you're providing good food for people, and to know the people you're providing food for. It's more than just you and the animals, but it's about people.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot.
Turns out that under that nice guy demeanor, Jesse's got a bit of a renegade entrepreneur to him. He does it his way, making the product he believes in, and he finds a market for it. Every Monday, Jesse parks beside the bridge to Hood River, where he slings his raw milk from the back of his truck. He also sells it in Washington stores, and anyone can go straight to the farm, drop their money in the honor box, and take the milk from the fridge, less than 50 feet from where the cows were milked. I needed this outlaw milk in my life. We cross the border bridge every week now. It's another piece in my own little food system puzzle. Using a lot of bacon fat. It's cheap. We're halfway through. It's time to reflect on how the Local 30 is going. I was a little worried about Taylor and my brother Adam committing to the local food.
We're 14 days in. I've lost 25 pounds. I haven't eaten a thing since this thing started. I've been drinking nothing but beer and coffee. And I feel great. Yeah, I've never been more fit.
I think there's like a weird body cleanse that's happened to me with like getting any sort of like processed food out. That sounds weird and whatever, but it's just like that's what's happening to my body.
The convenient stuff, or even like what we cooked with, like we've really like limited what we're like our staple ingredients. I think were the things that were processed. So like our seasonings, our mustards, our soy sauce, our all that stuff was processed. And I think that going into this, we never realized that all of our condiments were maybe what were making us feel like shit. I'm not gonna lie, we definitely have it easy going local with a farm in our backyard. But it's still challenging. I've learned to plan ahead, to stock up for longer duration, and I definitely don't waste anything. We only have 2 more weeks on this project, but it's starting to feel like it's just the beginning of something.
You did great. I'm so bad at this shit. If I got a good dog.
What types of mushrooms are those?
That need for something sweet, those first 5 days I felt and got through it without doing that, and I don't even think about it anymore.
What's been your favorite thing that you've cooked on the Local 30?
Have you been cooking?
No.
I have not cooked one time. But they talk about these ayahuasca trips and you have like a shaman or like a guide.
Right.
Andrea's my guide for the Local 30. I've been doing a lot of dishes. I'm setting the coffee maker. That's kind of my role.
The cravings have gone away, and kind of what I've figured out is that the most simple stuff is tasting like the best. Our pantry is looking quite different these days, but it's not just food in there. We're seeding relationships. There are stories behind the food and new memories, and those are starting to fill us up and nourish us in ways we never imagined.
Okay, so I will say one thing. Not to sound like a bitch, but like you guys would smash the peanut M&Ms and I would refrain, and you boys would be on the couch before like going back.
No, I'd be up laying out black plastic being like I'm about to throw up.
The other thing is that I've noticed that since I've been doing this, normally I can bench press 200.
Yeah.
Now I'm bench pressing 300.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. I noticed that.
The seasons are definitely changing and the first rains are coming, which is great for the farm. It means the mushrooms are emerging. Next stop, some soggy forest, somewhere in the Columbia River Gorge.
Actually, like if you looked at it in a microscope, the mycelium and the root hairs of the tree, like on the very, very, very ends, the trees couldn't exist without the mycelium, but the mycelium also couldn't exist without the trees. The mycelium.
I'd never gone mushroom hunting before, but it was the most thrilling scavenger hunt of my life. Walking head down around the dark, damp forest was both calming and nerve-wracking. We're with our friend Colin. He and his wife run Blue Bus, a small business of fermenting vegetables and making kombucha. Colin has also been foraging for mushrooms for years. He's become a local expert.
Must be an apricot.
Don't eat that one. It'll kill you.
Within what, 24 hours, right?
No, symptoms start in 24 hours. It's like a long, agonizing death.
Oh, God.
Just knowing there's a whole world of connections and roots talking to each other under the surface gave so much more life and mystery to the forest.
There you go. Walking around with Colin made me
trust
slow
the
down,
frickin' forager.
observe,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
be patient.
That's always go with someone more experienced than you,
Yeah.
unless you can't find that person.
Then don't go.
You got a shrimp?
Look at
You got a
that.
nice
That one
shrimp.
looks cool.
Oh, that's a cluster.
As darkness settled in and we followed Colin out of the forest, I couldn't stop thinking about this idea of connected roots and symbiosis. The basic idea of give and take and how seamlessly it works with the mushrooms. I've never been too philosophical, but something struck me in the forest, looking for signs of mushrooms. I can't help but wonder if we can create deeper, more natural connections in our life. And it all gets back to the roots and food. Isn't that a great place to start?
It's got that sweet stank smell. You did all right, guys.
We did just fine.
Ironically, of all these field trips to meet other producers, the hardest task in this whole Local 30 project is going to be on our own farm. We have to do something that I'm dreading, despite knowing how important and real it is.
And do you have any last words before we get into it?
Well, thank you for raising these pigs and giving them to us, and pretty stoked to have some meat all winter long, and I'm gonna miss them, but pretty pumped at the life we gave them, and kind of stoked to get rid of this smell.
They've been well loved.
Our friend Michael is a pig farmer. We showed up at his farm one April morning earlier this year and loaded 5 squealing piglets into the truck and brought them back to Tumbleweed. The girls spent 6 months mud bathing, sunbasking, chasing each other around, and munching on all of our farmers market's leftovers.
The first step in making it food. I just remember like unloading the steer, and it turned around and looked at me and had a tear in its eye. And I went home to Rebecca that day and I was like, I can't do this. That was kind of the turning point to where I was like, okay, I need to do all of these animals on farm, because ultimately I'm trying to change the food system.
Last year when we dropped them off, it was, we had the pigs for what, almost 6 months. They were always so excited to see us, and then that morning of having to load them up, it just didn't feel right. I remember after we dropped them off, I called my mom crying. I was like, I can't do this. This did not feel right.
Michael was getting set up to process his own pork, so it felt right to have him come over and complete the circle for us. Michael does what he does because he loves animals, and his animal husbandry was more honorable than I ever thought possible. Watching how respectful he was with each animal, before, during, and after it died, how he touched it and handled it, filled me with gratitude. These girls were our buddies, and even though we always knew we were going to harvest them, it was a sad day. But he made me feel so much better about it. They were happy right up to the moment they stopped living.
Shoulder's good for
and the meat is
slow
better
roasting.
than we've ever had before.
That's good for searing, quick cooking, and of course, bacon. It's good for all kinds of things.
This feels like a big part of getting back to the basics. Some ingredients require packaging and shipping and passing through different hands, and the traceability gets lost in the shuffle. It doesn't get more raw and real than this. It's okay to be sad. It's a choice we've made. It's simple, direct, and low impact. And it's full circle. They fertilize our fields, they eat our waste, we get a higher yield of produce, and then we get meat. The emotional side of the slaughter is a cost that we're willing to pay. It's not for everyone, but it's part of our commitment to knowing where and how our food ends up on our table.
Good morning. Yep. So we're gonna pick a little Syrah.
You may or may not know this about me, but I enjoy wine, really enjoy wine. We live in a great part of the world for growing grapes, so it's pretty easy to buy local wine. But I'd never looked under the hood of a real winery. We caught James Mantone and assistant winemaker Novella Klein at their last fall harvest.
Want to pick really clean fruit,
Mhm.
so be careful not to cut yourself.
Okay.
Have you ever met Miss Lindy? She's a gal with the bright red hair. Now she stands high from all the rest. You know her anywhere where she's mine.
I'll admit, I had expected a winemaker to be a bit more pinkies up and fancy. James calls himself a blue-collar winemaker, and I can see what he means. He's not just making the wine, but he's also the farmer.
And what's so beneficial about the wind?
The wind is really cool. It's both a benefit and a nuisance for us. But it dries things out. Okay. Which is great, and so we don't get mildew. Mildew is our big threat. Dries things out, but it also makes the skins thicker, so we get more dark color, more tannins. So all of that adds up. And usually here in the gorge, you know, it's like when it's not windy, it's hot. Right. And so mildew doesn't grow when it's hot. So those two things combined, without our rainfall problems that a lot of places have, it's really easy to grow grapes organically here. They're incredibly water efficient.
That's awesome.
I mean, if you think about so a plant grows as much above ground as below ground every year, and then we cut off 90% of what grows above ground every year. Okay. So you have this huge root network that develops for this tiny little canopy. And then one of the cool things about the gorge that for winemaking is the vintages are so variable. The weather from year to year is so variable that we've had, in the last 10 years, we've had the hottest vintages and the coldest vintages ever on record. So
Good taste.
yeah, it's really dynamic and really challenging and really fun. And so it also makes it more fun to drink the wines because they taste different year to year. Right. Those are seconds, so second crop.
I never knew roots were such a part of the grape growing process, too. It was almost the same sort of underground sharing that Colin talked about with the mushrooms.
My first harvest was 2007. I really like working in the gorge because it's like a new and exciting area, and it's still really small, and people are just like starting to learn what really grows well here. And in a lot of the California wine regions, but it's just vines everywhere. Right. Like here, it's like you still see mountains and you still have trees, and James and I talk about this all the time. You just can't come in and plant a 300-acre vineyard in one spot here. There's no plots of lands that are that big. It's like these small, little more intimate spots.
James had told us to bring shorts. Now I knew why.
I've never felt more sexy.
So now everyone can officially tell you, yes, I love Lucy. I foot stomped up.
Do you want to pull the newscaster? Should I fall out of this?
Liquid. So basically, as it's fermenting, it's releasing so much CO2 that all the skins end up getting pushed up to the surface. And so what we want to do is we go typically twice a day.
Go get some more grapes on those legs. This is going to take about 5 hours.
Seeds, they settle on the bottom. Absolutely. Leave those behind if it's a really thick layer.
Novella, you might have to push my butt, girl.
Oh, you're good.
I already asked Novella, but it's, if you were on a desert island, you could only have beer or wine. What would you bring?
Syncline is a geologic feature that is common in this part of the gorge. The layers of the Earth's crust folded in giant waves of basalt rock millions of years ago, and then these unimaginably gigantic floods ripped down the Columbia River during the last ice age. Driving home along the river, you can see the folded hills through the car window. It's a reminder of the power and mystery and the vital energy of the place we live. The folks at Syncline chose the name to represent forces grand enough to bend mountains. All of it shaped the land their vineyards grow in and the subtle flavors in their wines. Our last stop is the closest, about 5 miles as the crow flies. Our friend Katrina McAlexander owns a third-generation parent apple orchard. She runs a farm stand, a community-supported fruit membership, and she makes cider. Now she's building a tasting room and pizza oven to bring more people and more income to the orchard.
And start framing. And
Okay.
The goal is to get as much of it built before the snow flies.
Okay.
Because, you know, we're going to get snow.
We're going to press some cider for the Local 30 grand finale dinner.
So I set up this wooden press right underneath our standard Red Delicious 135-year-old apple tree. She's still super fruitful, as you can tell, so growing tons of fruit every year. And it's the oldest tree on our farm, kind of connects me to my grandparents. And so I thought we would press cider today just underneath the canopy of the story of my family's farm. Yeah, she's a badass. I'm just gonna hold it with my body like this. And are we ready to start making cider?
Absolutely.
Do you smell that?
Katrina's creative ambition is keeping her orchard alive. The orchard business is tough. Fruit prices fluctuate, and politics affect the migratory labor force. Family-run orchards have been the backbone of the Hood River Valley for over a century, and the orchards are a big part of the area's culture.
So
Like
good.
with ranching, if we lose the orchards, what comes next? Condos, shopping centers, and second homes? Trina's looking ahead and finding ways for her orchard to adapt and thrive.
Damn.
Damn. I mean, doesn't get much better than that.
Despite all our local breweries, beer had to be a cheat because we couldn't trace all the ingredients. While we indulged in our beer cheats, we supplemented with a good amount of Trina cider during the Local 30. With wines and ciders, it's very possible to get your buzz on locally in the gorge. Katrina's also hosting our grand finale Local 30 dinner celebration. I don't know a better way to celebrate this Local 30 exploration than by gathering together my new friends in the middle of Trina's pear orchard to clink glasses and break local bread.
There's been a face to every single ingredient, down to what we're cooking in. We've met those folks, and that's pretty sweet.
I knew I was inspired by my own experiences, but gathering all the producers we met during our month-long experiment reinforced the reason I got myself into this in the first place. My hunch that there is a deep desire out there for folks to be more connected to their lives through food. Did we change the world? No. Were we assholes for giving this a try? I'm not sure. Did it even matter? Hell yeah. It isn't about 200 miles anymore. It's about being connected. It's about finding people and discovering how little pieces of their world make up mine. That's what home means. The Local 30 was simply a vessel for tapping into it.
What would happen if we just like ate local food only? And we're farmers. I've always thought that I was a locavore, but I looked in my cupboard and I was like, where the hell is my coconut milk coming from? Where is my tahini coming from? Like, who picked this? How are they treated? You know, all of a sudden it was like things started to like not be very traceable. I didn't know what to expect doing this. I was like, we might fail. Taylor's gonna be smashing Doritos in the closet at night. And you know, I didn't even really take it that seriously. I was like, we're gonna do this, but I don't really know what to expect. And what happened was fucking awesome. We ended up meeting so many rad people. And now that it's over, we're kind of like, I think I want to keep going. Thank you, everyone. I mean, everyone that is here tonight is a part of that. We're pretty pumped that we live in this awesome part of the world with really rad folks that are doing really, really good things. So thank you. And I hope it's edible.
That'd be a young assumption. I just sit and stay home.
Big guy, you owe me $350 for the kohlrabi that you just.
Take it out of my paycheck tomorrow.